Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Dark Side of Podcast. Rogie, Deadline, Steve, and Matt joining you here live for another wonderful episode, guys. Happy to have you all back on. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a super special guest on tonight, so we have our resident producer, Deadline, joining us for a little bit of back and forth action. How are we feeling, Deadline? It's been a while since we had you on, mate.
Yeah, look, it's been a while in a lot of things, really. Chats with the boys, time on the podcast, but look, I'm glad to be here.
But you've been there behind the scenes regardless, man, working... Yeah, you've been behind the scenes, working tirelessly day in, day out to make sure that the production of the podcast gets better week in, week out. So it's really good to have you there doing your slogan duty, mate. Love it.
That's it. Tunes couldn't be better, let me tell you.
Matt, Steve, how you guys doing?
Yeah, I'm going good, man. Right. Last week of the term, so feeling good. I know,
Steve, you've had a lot going on recently, man. Heading over to Texas, coming back, looking at some Marvel stuff. It seems like your timeline has been dead ass lit, fam.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the impressions up. You know how esports is, right? Always trying to make it better.
Sorry I interrupted your impressions the other day, man.
No, it's totally fine. I got plenty to share,
Plenty of impressions to go around.
If it means going to Texas, man, that's what these impressions
Self-sponsored boys, flying around the world, doing all my things.
Ooh,
this is a Hungry Human. Love Hungry Human.
So how'd you go? Was it fun? Did you have fun in Texas? What did you eat?
Yeah, dude. It was good. I had I had barbecue. I had like fried chicken.
Barbecue shapes?
I was eating so bad, right? One night I had like 4 glasses of water for dinner because I just like couldn't deal with the amount of food that I was eating. But then I backed that up with like a strong night of drinking and tacos on the way home. So
Nice.
Catch any gin and tonics or anything while you're over
there? yeah, definitely did. But let's not talk about it too much because you know the story and you're just baiting me here.
Yeah, he is.
It's a story for another day.
Yeah,
but look, we got a lot on our
Dark Side and After Dark podcast later. Coming to you guys later.
Oh, that's so good. That is an idea, man.
Maybe that one, we'll do that at 9 p.m. We'll see how many viewers we get on for that one.
That's
possible. Anyway, we got a lot on our plate today, but as usual, if we don't have a guest, it's us just going to be shooting the shit about general esports related stuff. And the first thing on our plate tonight is Gfinity. So we've had a lot going on with Gfinity as of late. We've got our Counter-Strike players, we've got our Rocket League players, and of course, we have our Street Fighter players, with Somniac being probably the most prolific Street Fighter player in the Gfinity scene right now, doubling the second place person, basically. So, a lot of question marks surrounding, which city he's going to be siding with. And Steve, Somniac pretty well, man. How's he feeling about the whole thing, coming out on top, of course?
Well, I don't know how well you know Somniac or Xavier on a personal level, but the person that I know is like always informed, always doing his research to like the nth degree, right? So he has, there's not a lot that's been said about Gfinity, especially like if you're in just the broader public or on maybe an inside level like we would be as orgs involved in the whole kind of situation. But he's got a better picture than anyone that I know. So yeah, he's doing his research. I'd like to see him go to Melbourne because being a Melbourne boy and stuff. What do you guys keep doing about? What's this?
Oh, Deadline, man, what? I gotta tell you, the nameplates on the stream.
I know that.
How dare you call me Matt Kale?
There's an operation, alright? It's going.
Westy and Deadline who got switch names. You guys.
That's alright, keep it going.
Do it live.
Wait, reel it in, boys. So, Xavier has like a better understanding than anyone else. And I go to him for my information.
Oh, wait, we've lost it. Are we back? No, we're not back. Deadline, what's going on, man?
What's going on?
Is Westy back to Matt K. West? You back to Matt Kale?
Yeah, I'm working on that. Keep the chat going though, and we'll be fine.
Look, Somniac, he's a man that likes to be in charge. He knows what he's about. He knows his worth. He's not going to let the esports life weigh him down with all that nonsense.
Yeah, he's FGC.
Yeah, he's FGC, right? He's been around the bush for a few times.
He's such a figurehead that it's safe to just go to him with like any questions, whether it's like Gfinity or anything, and it's pretty safe to know that he's gonna answer right. He's the go-to man. Yeah.
But Matt, especially because you've been helping him kind of navigate these very choppy waters with the Gfinity stuff that's been going on as of late. How have you been finding it from your perspective?
Yeah, like I think we touched on our first podcast that like Gfinity as an opportunity is awesome. Like I think any opportunity for a player to play in something prestigious or high level with lots of prize money production, I think that's always awesome. Even going to Hoyts to play will be great. From a TO to a org like management perspective, I think it's probably been one of the more like worser experiences.
Worse? Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's like turbulence, right? It's that kickstart.
I think that there's so many good like broadcasting companies and tournament organizers out there that do a great job that if you're wanting to do something good, it's not hard to seek help or even look at what they do. Like in terms of look at the timeline on when they give information or how well they're contacting, what their social media is like. It's not hard to like look at how ESL are promoting IEM, like just copy and paste that or anything. Like it's not hard, but yeah, it's been a little bit rocky.
Interesting, and like as you say that, we've got all these turbulent kind of skies ahead. We're not really sure what's going on, but there's been no effort to alleviate that. I think Steve said, like the quote you have here is silence the best answer, right? Like we haven't heard or seen or been given any information about how this stuff's going to look, and as an org, it puts us in a very precarious position, right? We're already starting negotiations, we're already starting like reaching out and having people reach out to us to look at our players, but we just don't know what the heck's going on, right?
It's even like we have some of the clubs in Gfinity reaching out regarding our players. And it like kind of raises alarms when they even approach saying they don't know. Like we've had a couple that's like, hey, we're interested, but we don't even know what the process is right now. Like, so we just want to get the lay of the land. It's like, you would know more than me. Like we don't know anything. And it's hard. Like I was actually talking to Somniac the other night and we were trying to find where you can actually find concrete information about Gfinity, and besides the YouTube video that they did to promote it, there's really not much. And
I mean, like Xavier's technique has just been going over and going to check out what Europe's Gfinity or England's Gfinity series has been out, right? And just being like,
he's done a lot of research.
Yeah, he's just doing his own thing.
He's even I think he's even like organized times to chat with the European Street Fighter players, and they've given him a bit of lay of the land of what happens over there for them, because right now the only information that we sort of know or anyone kind of knows is it just seems like, oh, I've spoken to this person from Gfinity on the phone or in DMs and they've told me this, and it's just hearsay from like 20 different cases of conversations, and there's nothing concrete. Like someone can come to you and be like, I heard this from this person at Gfinity, or I got text message this, or I got DM this. And it's like there's nothing concrete. Like if that was real, why isn't it in the public eye?
I think it's been 7 months.
Like
7 months since the announcement of Gfinity.
But we're offering a lot of like feedback, primarily negative. So let's take this in another direction and think about like feedback and positive. Like what would you like to see them do next? Like how do we go about this? Is it come out with a nice comprehensive list of step by step what's next? What does this drafting process look like? Here's how it's looked in the past, other regions. Here's how it worked. Here's how it didn't work, and here's what we learned from it. Is that something you'd like to see?
Yeah, transparency is easily the key. Like, there has been how many times, like, and this is not even a call out, but how many times has ESL or Cybergamer messed up something in a tournament? They've made the wrong call, they've invited the wrong team, they've done something wrong. And immediately, both those parties just come out and be like, hey, whether it's Kameen or whether it's Cyanide, hey, we messed up here.
For sure, he's always messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, like, they just come out, hey, we made a mistake, this is what we're going to do to improve. But we don't get that level of transparency. Like, we barely get anything from Gfinity.
I suppose it's the
who's running it.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't that old mate, what's his name, running it, and then he left, like Turtle or something?
For Counter-Strike?
Yeah, some of the
like, I don't even know who's like you said, you know who's doing the league ops for ESL. It's Kameen. You know who's doing the stuff for CG. It's Cyanide. But like, I haven't done too much research into either of those things, and I knew who's doing it. I don't know who's doing ESL. What do you call it? Gfinity. You could ask me, and I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know where to look. I wouldn't even know where to begin to look.
I just,
Oh, well.
I just think for something so tier 1, I think it's not healthy to have it in the dark. Like, there's like promotion on the radio, there's promotion like all over internet ads and stuff. They're pumping like crazy money into it. Like, they're getting pretty good sponsor deals too, by the looks of it. It's just like, please give us something so that we know, like a basic tournament format or dates or a structure, like anything. Like, and then like, which leads to the next point, which is the drafting process and how the sponsored players or some sponsored players are being put into a talent pool and not in the elite draft anymore. So
I think to sort of play devil's advocate as well at the same time, right?
Do
It's
it.
like the Gfinity are like launching this massive operation, right? All in within like the first few months or year or whatever, right? Like, we know these household names of like CG and ESL. You know, I feel like they've done the right thing about it, you know, being in the scene for a few years, starting with, you know, one league or maybe just a tournament, not even just like a league, but a tournament. See how that runs out, see if people like it. After that, maybe go for a season. Like, this is a lot of things to be like aiming towards in your first year of operation. And I mean, can't help but say, like, it's sort of being reflected on what we're seeing here at the moment, which is
it's
very
not. It's the first year of operation in this country, but it's coming from an already proven system in another ecosystem, right?
Right.
So they can't really
do
start
wanna-
slow.
yeah. Well, I
Right?
do want to
Even though
say,
like that's the safe and easy way to do it. You can't just start slow. They have, you know, they pitch an idea to investors or whoever's like footing the bill, so to speak, and then they have to hit these quotas. You can't just like shy away from that, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
The issue with it is there's a misjudgment of our capabilities as a country, because you know, there just isn't the fundamentals or like, you know, the ecosystem for that to be supported. And like we were just talking about before, like having those basics covered, you know, socials or dates and things like that.
Australia is very well like capable of doing all these things. Like we ran ESL in Australia, who represent Australia, ran IEM last year.
I can
That's a
guarantee you
massive thing.
there's no
Like,
one outside that ESL team that could competently run a league as big as that. There isn't.
Throwdown ran
don't-
that PAX tournament for Rocket League that was pretty big, and they also did one for Street Fighter. It was, you know,
don't forget though, ESL ran IEM after operating in Australia for like 3 or 4 years,
Yeah, and
doing
that's what I'm
smaller
getting at.
stuff.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was like slowly.
but to say
like,
it's not
this is going.
possible, to say it's not
I'm
possible,
not saying it's
isn't
possible.
exactly, like,
I'm not
accurate
saying it's
either.
not possible. I'm saying that
Like-
it's made it actually very difficult for them. In the first, it's fallen flat.
You look at
guys-
the team behind.
if you guys
Yeah,
remember back to when ESL Australia actually first came to Australia, it was a failure, right? It wasn't until they picked up the ACL guys who actually had put in the time and the effort that it was a success. So you really need that fundamentals when you're breaking into an underdeveloped scene, and that's what it was back then when ESL Australia first tried to launch itself and got nowhere. Then they come in, they pick up these experienced people who have the respect, they have the contacts, and they have the drive to do it, and now look how successful it is, right? So
Yeah.
I think Gfinity just didn't know where to look for that group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, a lot of those people are like one of a kind talents, right? So, I mean, they've definitely like curated a list of really great people to run or like to work for that company. So it'll be hard to follow that up, right?
Oh yeah.
So
But-
I was gonna say
I
we have
still
like
believe
a-
it's possible, though, right? I still believe that it's very possible for Gfinity to be amazing and do what they need to do to achieve their goals.
it's
from
a potential
our point of view.
tier 1 event.
Yeah, from our point of view, it's just like, I mean, imagine wanting to invest in this and not knowing which way it's going to go, or so it can be a little bit hard.
Yeah. I think like my
What you
my-
want
my
is some
experience-
confidence, right?
Yeah, my experience has been good though. Like, I don't want to sit here and just kind of crap on Gfinity.
Yeah.
Like my dealings with Stacia and Sam and stuff have been awesome. Like, really down to earth and really great people. But yeah, I mean, something of this caliber is obviously open to be criticized, and I think my biggest criticism at the moment is, and for those in the chat, because it seems like it's a really good topic to talk about, is some sponsored players have been taken out of that top 20 elite draft and put into this separate talent pool. Now, if you weren't in with the loop, I guess you wouldn't know this because it's not public as well. But it's not hidden information either. So, players like Somniac, who had like double the points, players like ZG, our Rocket League team, they've been taken out of that elite draft and put into the separate talent pool, which you can't find them anywhere. So it's not a public place that you can go scout them. The reasoning for it is Gfinity has promised their clubs that are buying in that they have free pick over those drafted players. And if they're in an org that can potentially hinder that free pickup, then they've been moved to the talent. So there are some sponsored players, and I don't mean to sort of like rag on anyone, but lower tier organizations or newer organizations seem to not be affected in that regard. But I have seen players from like Legacy or Jam or I think Corvair even and Darksided. Those players under those orgs have been sort of missed out because they're put in this separate draft talent pool. Now that's because Gfinity are trying to like protect this tournament. They want their clubs buying in to be like, oh, here's my top 20 elite. I can pick them at random.
Right.
But we've been told that the teams and the players in the talent pool, they're supposed to be getting promoted first to be like, hey, these are the players that are sponsored, and you will need to maybe pay a lease fee, or these players may request a salary or something higher, which is right because that's what they're getting outside of Gfinity. And they're the top of the bunch. And when I was having a really good chat, and I was having a really good chat with Somniac the other day, and he made a perfect point where he's worried that Gfinity are putting the top players in each game in this talent pool, and Gfinity are not going to care whether they get picked up or not. Now, all of us here, like Gfinity aside, as an esports fan, I want Gfinity to succeed. I want it to be a tier 1 event for the esports scene. To have that, you need to have the best of the best players. For the integrity of a tier 1 event, you need to have the best players amongst every single game. And I'm worried if you're going to have like 3 of the best Rocket League teams stuck in this talent pool that aren't going to even be considered or promoted, like it's not going to be a tier 1 event. It's going to be like this crappy tier 2 event with like subpar talent. And I feel like Gfinity will potentially want to keep running it because it's like, hey, it worked. Teams are playing. Who cares what teams they are? That's like my qualm.
Right?
That's
Qualm and Atcha.
Yeah, Qualm and Atcha.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think it'll all turn out fine. I don't know how it will, but that's not for me to answer anyway. But I think it'll all turn out fine.
Optimistic.
And even that,
reminding us to put our pitchforks away for tonight.
that's
I know what I'm saying is like kind of like blind faith, right? Having like retrospectively back the last 5 minutes, it's all just like concerns and worries and pressures and whatnot.
Yeah,
but
like at the end of all that, it's just speculation. Like I could be completely wrong. So it's the fun of it.
The team that's behind all of this, they are esports fans, and they will want to do the best for like what they're doing. Obviously, as anyone would. So you got to believe that it'll like turn out.
Yeah, there's good things to look about it as well.
That's right.
Fair cop. So yeah, like moving things along then. Next up, of course, LAN season. Big times ahead when you got a lot of teams, you got a lot of LANs, you got a lot of events, a lot of travel.
Dude, I'm gonna be traveling to Adelaide so many times this year. It'll be like,
hell yeah.
You're like, hell yeah, and it's me just like. I guess it's closer than Sydney, I guess. So that's not bad.
Is it?
What lens are coming up for us?
Half an hour.
Well, hopefully, touch wood, like on all of these things, right? There's the Overwatch Contenders LAN. Don't know whether that'll be at ESL, right? ESL running this tournament.
Without a doubt.
Chances are it'll be the ESL studios in Sydney.
Microsoft.
I see Mike's thrown in, maybe.
Maybe not the Microsoft store. Maybe not the Microsoft store, but
Microsoft store.
There's also like
you can try out the Vive, the HTC Vive.
Any tournament they run a Microsoft store, man, I'm winning. As I have it.
Well, you have
PUBG King.
There's also the Cyber Gamer tournaments. Obviously, the CGPL for Counter-Strike. And there's the inaugural Street Fighter V tournament that they're running over the weekend of the 14th and the 15th.
Yeah.
What's the inaugural mean?
In the first.
Oh.
Yeah.
First.
I don't know if it's called CGPL or if it's branded as the Pro League kind of thing, because it's not really a league.
It is.
But
I think it is.
Either way, there's the Street Fighter tournament coming up that a lot of the boys are pretty excited for.
Now, Steve, I got one for you, mate.
Yeah.
Overwatch Contenders LAN Final. Actually, it's for everyone. Overwatch Contenders LAN Final is the same weekend as BAM 10. Thoughts on that one? Oh no!
I'm not gonna split up, boys. We're gonna have to throw our names in a hat.
You guys
and
are
be
gonna send me
drawn.
to Sydney and make me miss fighting games, aren't you?
Yeah, we're gonna go to
I'll
Melbourne. Yeah, I mean, for
Alright,
anyone
so
watching, the fighting game events.
chances
are
are I'm going to Sydney. Chances
Not
are.
necessarily.
All right, we're gonna draw straws on this one later, boys. Because
It sounds like Steve
as much as I want to go,
Yeah.
no, don't
think
even,
Steve's had enough of the FCC.
go there, Max. That is.
I don't know, Steve, man. You're the one
Steve
who's
said he's
drawing
had
the. You're
Yeah, it's
cutting
like,
your
go to
straw right
Sydney.
now, mate.
Go to Sydney and hang out with the Overwatch guys, which is pretty cool, or take my camera and go to BAM and hang out with Will and shoot like content for fighting games, which honestly, because I have like a massive love for it, it's like way up here, you know. So yeah, I don't know. We'll have to
What are
draw
you
straws on
getting
that
at?
one.
So it sounds like you don't want to go to Overwatch. That's all I'm getting out of this.
I love the boys,
Big
but
man.
you know, fighting games is in the blood. So
I actually,
So-
I really want to hang out with the Overwatch boys though.
I
Like,
thought the
I'll
Overwatch
be-
Contenders League was in April, though. I thought, you know, BAM is in May. I've got April in my notes here. Is that wrong?
it's wrong. Those dates are wrong. They're like the pre dates. Yeah.
Come on, Steve, mate.
Keep up, man.
Up with the times.
Esports dates change like 10
It's
times.
alright.
Dude.
Jazz in the chat just said that she'd come up with me to the Overwatch Contenders thing, so me and Jazz Latte will go.
Yeah,
Jazz
that's
Latte.
That's Jazz's new nickname now, because she's from
Now
Mining
look,
Jazz Latte.
I've got an idea for BAM. This is what I was thinking because I want to go to both, and I was like, how is this possible? Now,
It ain't happening.
word on the street, because there's no public info. Word on the street is that
What's the word
first
on the
week,
street?
Gfinity week 1 for Street Fighter 5 actually takes place on the Sunday of BAM 10. So what's apparently happening is players will finish up their Street Fighter bracket at the finals in the morning on Sunday, and then they're expected
that's
to
true.
fly to Sydney. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we're only there, like, we are there for the other boys. We are there for, like, Smash and Injustice and stuff, but maybe can go to BAM, then fly to Sydney with the
This is
boys for
ridiculous.
Sunday and catch the Overwatch finals rather at Gfinity.
Hey, that's an
Dude,
ambitious weekend. That's an ambitious weekend.
That sounds
Like,
like a
why
good
would
club.
Yeah, it's just non-stop traveling and just hating a lot.
I mean, Westy,
Alright,
right? We got
we'll work out the
there's
legit.
your bed right there, dude. You can.
Yeah, I can't wait. She's
These
calling
three,
me.
three can share that.
I've slept on that couch, and it's like, it's not long enough for like even me, and I'm like 5'6". Like I'm not tall at all.
So we'll start drinking on Sunday and we'll
Anyway.
carry it through the flight. Just keep it going.
Somehow we'll make it work.
Yeah.
We've also got Expand the Gong, which extra is going for Smash 4 in Wollongong.
Oh, expand gong.
Expand the Gong.
I'm pretty
So
sure.
That's a fairly
R6
new tournament.
I think R6 has a land soon too. For their
Yeah,
finals.
around there somewhere.
Yeah, chuck it in there. Chuck it in that same weekend, please.
Yeah,
That'd be
chuck
good.
her in the
Yeah.
bowl. Put her in the pot.
You make it on the
Boy.
Friday. You make it on the Thursday, so they can start Thursday, go Friday, stay Saturday, leave Sunday, and then go back on the Monday.
Beautiful. I'll just pack myself into a rodeo case in ESL's like.
Just road
warehouse.
case, dude. Road case.
Rodeo.
Oh. Oops.
Yeehaw!
Yeah.
Yeah,
Road
indeed.
case,
He
huh?
saw Shady's emote, man, and instantly went to Cowboys.
Yeah. He had me there, man.
Oh, man. Nah, look.
So
Can I get
good.
Can I get like a deadline yikes emote for that?
Yikes. Oh, man. Oh, well, what was the other main thing we wanted to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the Call of Duty drama going on. Drama alert!
Oh no.
What are you
I
talking
think
about?
that's-
Drama alert.
There's def some COD boys in the chat. I see some COD players in the chat.
Alright.
Anyway,
Well,
Westy, man, I think you had something you're pretty passionate about wanting to chat about this because it's quite controversial at the moment, and it's something that seems to crop up in varying degrees throughout Australia, pretty much esports in general, right? And for those of you who don't know, I think a couple of Call of Duty players wanted to leave SYF. SYF said, no, you have a buyout, and we're going to expect you guys to honor that. That's the long and short of it. Obviously, that's like what the public should perceive. And of course, details get leaked, people make tweet
I think the other
longers,
detail
and all
that
hell
you
breaks
missed-
loose.
The other detail that you didn't say was that they were also actively replacing them, right? Which, from a business perspective, like with employees and stuff, they're always hiring for similar positions, right? If you want to look at it that way. So, yeah,
I mean,
that's
like,
the other little bit.
But that's not grounds for just like for breaking. That's not breaking the contract. So
If
really
my
doesn't hold
workplace
much
were to
weight.
hire another Steve,
I think-
it wouldn't be like I'm just gonna quit because there's another Steve. Like that's not really how it is.
I think,
That's what
like,
I mean.
firstly, we're just going to discuss what was pretty much in that bit, that tweet longer and around it. Like, obviously, we don't have the SYF point of view, so if anyone's like watching, we're sort of just analyzing what has been said and not what hasn't.
Don't
been
really
said
want to
from
like
the
stir up more flames,
Yeah.
more just because we've
There's
been
no
in a
need for
similar
that.
position, right? We've
Yeah,
been in a
yeah,
similar
that's right.
position where players have want to left, but we've put an X amount of money as investment, and we as a
Yeah.
business need to
Yeah.
see some ROI on that, and that comes through
Yeah.
a buyout. If they want to go and play somewhere else and use their brand that we've helped them create to do that, then that comes with a cost. So we've been in a similar position. Obviously, depending on how you handle it, things can go out of control, and you want to avoid that because being an esports team, you're pretty much public facing. Your brand and your reputation is everything on Twitter, apparently.
It feels
So
like
people
that's
can judge that.
that's like the strategy for. I feel bad saying this, but for esports and stuff, it's like, oh, if I don't get what I want and I feel like I've been hard done by, I'm just gonna go public and let people make
I
their own
mean,
decisions.
that was
Or,
Matt's,
like
that was
let
Matt's
them make up their
strategy
own
for like a
mind
month.
with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That tweet longer, it went from like, hey, this is sort of what's happening with us, and then it just went into like personal attacks, and it was like
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
after
well-
shot after the other. And it's like, I get that you want to put your point public, but you're just like you're just
I don't like this guy's
helping,
shoes,
right?
man. That sort of stuff,
Yeah. You're just taking
I feel-
shots now.
That's,
You're firing
that's
from the hip, bro.
That's the fastest
Yeah.
way to burn bridges.
Yeah, it's
Um,
almost like
it's like, is it though? Because like you remember like the cake from like the Tainted Minds thing. It's like
Oi.
that was like going public really like made like some sort of revolution there. But it's like
And so
This-
every situation is different, right? Obviously,
yeah,
like
that's right.
you have to look at it. You can't compare them or group them or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
tough times if you like find yourself on the receiving end of that, because it's like, well, what do I do here? Like it's a
Yeah.
tough.
I think
Like, what
like-
do you do? You fire back? Do you like? Cool, like it takes a really like you need to be cool, calm, and collected, and really like, all right, here's the facts. If you're gonna like
Yeah.
make up your own mind, okay, here's everything you need to know to actually make up your mind on it. And sometimes it's not even their business. Like, it's like if it's a confidential thing, why should I have to present the facts in a public setting to have someone that isn't involved make their opinion on what I'm doing? It's like, yeah, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's the state of the world kind of sometimes. So
yeah. I don't
I
see
think like no.
Oh, go
There
ahead.
you go.
Liz. Oh, cool.
I was gonna say, like no. Go.
hey, Deadline, how you doing?
I was gonna say I don't.
Sir.
I don't
No,
think-
Sir, I insist.
I don't think it's a setback or a push forward of anything. I think it's just like a slice of life,
Stands
slice of
still.
esports life, basically, mate. Like you get that.
No matter what team you support, you're never going to get that money back. It's like no matter what prize cut you are getting,
Yeah.
if you are dedicated to them, like you are never getting that money back. Like esports teams need way more support than ever. Each year the support goes up. It's just facts. Like
Yeah.
more tournaments
Yeah.
come around, better quality tournaments. Players need more money to travel. They need more allowance. They need more salary. Whatever. You're never
Definitely.
you're never going to get that money back. And I understand like SYF's point of view. It's like, hey, we put a lot of money into you. Like they sent them to America like twice. That's huge. Like we were looking at Call of Duty and we were weighing up whether we could even make that viable, and we decided no.
It's
Like,
borderline like 20, 25K, close to 30K maybe, if you like include things like jerseys and like food. If you
Yeah.
did food and travel allowance, like ground travel allowance.
Yeah.
So
The-
it's
the-
not
the
a
fact-
small amount of money.
yeah.
Just
I think a
open
lot
up,
of people,
really.
a lot of people did make a good point. That was like, look, everything that's happening is messy, but in the business essence, Cipher put money in, and they just want to try and get something back. Like that's super reasonable. Like
Yeah.
if you like, we felt that before. We put money into someone. We put a lot of money into someone. Time, effort. Like it's not just money. Sometimes it's like the relationship, the
Yeah.
friendship.
It's a
the-
work
the pro-
ethic as well.
Yeah, the products, the amount of time the social media guys
Emotional
spend.
investment.
Yeah, that's right. Like we felt that before, so I don't blame like SYF for wanting to get some sort of financial return to recoup those losses. But the reality is, you're never going to get all those losses
Yeah.
recouped, like no matter what.
I felt as though like that sort of concept or that way of thinking, like the idea that you're not going to get your money back straight away, like that was actually something that I found pretty hard to come to terms with like a few years ago, or like starting things out. It's like, why is it that I've put X money into this and I'm not getting at least 2 times that back? Why is this like? And you actually have to see the value in other elements of what you're investing in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the word
This
itself.
is one of the facts of life.
investment.
right? This is one of the facts of life, right? So sometimes when you put money into something, you don't get it back. You don't get any of it back, like zero, right? You take a risk and you put money into something, and you have this big grand dream, and it falls apart, and it goes to like it doesn't become.
Describing dark-sided.
You don't put enough effort into it. Like you don't
why
garnish it.
describing Tron?
It's just not like sometimes unless you're putting money into anything other than like a super fund or some kind of like stocks, chances are you're not going to get more than you put in unless you grind at it, you put work at it. And even then, if you grind at it, you might not get it. Like 90% of businesses fail. Like I don't even know if that's a statistic, but
I remember hearing stuff like that at uni.
you hear what I'm saying though, right? Is like you see cafes pop up all the time and they disappear, they change hands. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
That sounds
stuff's like week in, week out, right?
So if you're gonna put money into something, don't expect it all to come back just because you put money in.
And I think that was a point that he
Same
made
Monopoly.
in
You
the
can't
tweet.
go around, go and get $200.
Yeah,
True.
like he made the point in the tweet longer was that like an opposing org was happy to offer X amount of money. I think it was like $1,600, but SYF was saying no. Stick to the original 3,000 or whatever. Like that's what we're sticking on. The reality is like I believe in negotiations. Like I think definitely try and like meet halfway. But the reality is with Call of Duty right now is it has zero local infrastructure and there's no local lands or anything roadmapped out. The online scene is rubbish. It's like single elimination 2Ks every Sunday, and
Can I
there's
ask
no
you a
proper
question?
broadcast. Yeah.
Was that the case when before ESL and the ACL guys were still around? They used to run like Modern Warfare tournaments, right? Modern Warfare 2 and stuff.
Yeah, I think
it was-
ESL ran
was
the
it quarterly?
COD World. Yeah, the COD World League broadcast, which was like a really poppin' broadcast as like a weekly like pro league matches.
That's when my
I think
Mike still was on.
yeah, like that.
Man,
That was
the
that
good
was
old days.
that was the
Yeah.
last time I felt Call of
And,
Duty
Dr.
was in a
Curry,
really
right?
good spot.
Oh,
Yeah,
he-
Dr. Curry
he's
was
never
around.
been one.
But
see him
like
sometimes in the-
now there's nothing. Like it's just, hey, I need money to fly to MLG overseas. Can you do it? And it's like there's nothing local. Like it's cool that some of the teams are putting up numbers on the board overseas, but at the expense of like $10,000, like nah, man. Like $10,000 can go and do much more than like getting 30th place at MLG. Like while it'd be great to give you that opportunity and make some cool content and spend an extra $2,000 to send someone over content, like and make a thing of it, it's just not enough. Like
does it
with
go?
no certainty.
You're
It's
gonna
just
get
like
100 views on YouTube and like a little bit of interaction throughout that month.
yeah,
and
like
that's-
the,
You milk
the
that
decline
YouTube
is there.
video with mid rolls. You have after rolls. You get the hell. You get
Yeah.
that stuff going, man.
Yeah, it sucks because in that time with the COD World League, where I think InManiac was even casting with Mike's and Miles and stuff, it was like the peak of COD. I felt like there was the most amount of money. Obviously, like that has to go. Like if the business side on their end doesn't meet like expectations, obviously it's going down. But the downhill trend just keeps going. We don't see any local lands this year. We're just seeing orgs come and go. I think the only orgs in Call of Duty right now are SYF, Tainted, Mindfreak, and Taboo. And Taboo being like a newer org. So there are other
They're also,
orgs,
like,
but they're the more distinct ones.
Mindfreak
really?
Mindfreak and Taboo are also like native orgs to that game, right? They were
Tainted
like
still-
born from
that's
that
right.
game.
Tainted still
So
in
it's like
COD?
two external
Yeah.
and two internal.
That's like it's like if you're like they're the only big names, and I say bigger names because if you're talking money in terms of orgs like Mindfreak, Tainted, and probably Taboo are the ones that have some sort of cash flow coming around. They're the
got
ones that are
that
going back and
clout.
forth. Yeah, they're coming back and forth from MLG. But when like you read that tweet longer, and it's like, hey, these guys offered $1,600. Like, I wouldn't offer $1,600 for Call of Duty players. Like, especially when you're going to pay $10,000 to send them overseas. Like,
That's right.
like what org is offering, or SYF say no to 3,000 each or $3,000 for the duo? What org has got that money? Like out of those big names, if they've got a team sorted, like what org is wasting that much money?
Yeah.
So I guess like kind of on the same topic, where to change gears a bit. I really liked what you said about it was all focused on international. Like nobody really, there was no kind of look back at national. And do you think that as Australian esports as a whole, we've come too much too overseas international centric? We're not focusing on what the big events are and how prestigious they're winning on like a national scale.
Well,
For COD or all esports?
For all esports, for Australian esports in general, because I know like for a few years there, it was just like the dream was for Chiefs or whoever to make Worlds and do well at Worlds. It was a dream for whatever other team had a World spot. It was like, oh, does this esport have Worlds? Are we going to go to Worlds? Are we going to get to play internationally?
Yeah.
That's what the focus was for like 2 long years. Everybody put all their attention, all their efforts into that, and I think that it's become too much of like an expectation to go international. Like winning nationally should still be a priority to a team. Like it shouldn't be, hey, you pick us up, we're like your 4th-rate team, but we want to go international. It's like, no, kid. Your team needs to dominate nationally before you can even look at those plane tickets. Like, you need to show us results
it's chicken
on
and egg,
our
though, right?
scale.
You get better by going overseas, and then you come back, and then you get
get
better, and then you...
Not if there's nothing to come back
You
to.
can still get
I've
better.
watched our Street Fighter players do better, having come back from going overseas.
But they're already the best. Steve. What I'm saying is, if you're not the best
Fiji, we love you, mate.
if you're not the best domestically, then and if you're not challenging the best, if you're not like taking them to all 5 maps or whatever, you're not going to learn a thing by going international. Because you're just going to get dumpstered. You're not going to know what you did wrong.
I guess there's like a little interpretation that, sorry, I'm going to jump in. There's like, you said if you're not like dominating top 1, but what happens if it's like, look at Rocket League.
I didn't say dominate, I said taking them to game 5. Taking them to game 5. Being competitive.
Yeah, but look at Rocket League where like the top 4 teams are really competitive, right? So any one of those top 4 could go internationally. And they will, because there's 2 spots for the Rocket League Championships, World Series or whatever is...
Again, but
that in itself will be a good case study, because every
multiple teams dominating.
Every RLCS so far, there's been a large gap between Chiefs, Rocket League team, and then the other one below it, where Chiefs take maps off the international teams, whereas the other OS team that goes up gets like dumpstered hard. But I think like going back to your question, Max, like I think there's way too much focus on going international, because you need like a proper infrastructure locally for it to matter. Like things like Smite. 3 international opportunities a year, who gives a shit? Like, there's no local infrastructure. There's barely any lands. There's barely any production. Too many production problems. Call of Duty is holding on to some like relevancy because Mindfreak are doing so well internationally. Imagine Mindfreak's Call of Duty team potentially being bought out by a larger organization. If you just envision that happening, where do you think Call of Duty in Australia would be? If Mindfreak was no longer
practically,
well, it would be like the Renegade situation where they live vicariously through that team,
and it becomes this disconnect. Like when Renegades went over, it's awesome. And yeah, when Renegades went over, it was awesome for the Australian scene. But like 2 years on, it's like, oh, they're just another NA team. It's cool. They've got some Aussie boys on there. That's great. But there needs to be a local infrastructure. Like Overwatch was sort of like in the ashes for a bit, and now it's got contenders. It's like booming. Or Rocket League has 4 Pro League seasons every single year and 2 international trips, but the focus is on getting like a packed stadium, like lands every single season. Like it's got a proper like local infrastructure where you want to care about it, and you then care about them going international. Like it's got to be an even mix of both. Like it can't just be like international.
Deadline?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, I would say, like, I would probably agree with Max, like, from the outside looking in. It would be really interesting to go back and study which teams have done well overseas. So you look at, like, your Mindfreak Rainbow Six, Mindfreak COD, Vox Eminor and CS, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And actually have a look back and see what Australian scenes were at that stage in those games. Because I actually think there is a bit of a point to it, having actually, like, fundamentals domestically and domination first before heading into that, like, that upper echelon. Because, I don't know, it just seems to be my experience.
Like, going back to the chat of, domestic to international, Counter-Strike has always had a cement local scene. Like, Cybergamer, and then when ESL started booming again. Yeah, Cybergamer, CSGO has had such a staple local scene that it's so strong that's producing such good talent that can go overseas. You could take any of the top 4 or 5 teams at the moment to go over, and they'll do well. Like we've seen that. Tainted Order, like our old CS team.
Yeah. And you look at like you mentioned Smite, Wesley, where a game has a bunch of international opportunities. Like on a similar vein, you got Gears of War, right? Like that Mindfreak team get like an international opportunity every 3 months, but they're the only Gears of War team in Australia, right? They have literally no competition. No one's trying to challenge them. They're never going to get better. They just go over. They get put in the bin, then they come home and they're like, alrighty, what are we going to do till then? We're going to try to play an American ping, and who knows, right? Like there
there
needs to be that
needs-
local infrastructure. There needs to be something
So-
that players can challenge each other for.
And while Call of Duty doesn't have it, and the local infrastructure gets worse and worse, it's just gonna like go into this phase of like non-existency. It needs to have a local infrastructure.
So let's offer a solution to this,
Sure,
right?
Steve.
Not that it's our place.
Solve this
But-
problem
but,
right now
you know,
on air.
like
live.
adding more thoughts. No, I'm serious. Like, this is something that I've seen with fighting games, and something I had an active hand in doing, is that because people want to go overseas and to play against international competitors and get better, the other alternative is to bring internationals here, which so instead of sending 6 teams over, why don't you just bring 1 team here and have 6 teams play them? And then everyone gets that international experience, but it's like in your own backyard, right?
Yeah.
So we did that with Shadaloo Showdown like forever ago.
Flip it
And
upside
we
down.
kept doing it until we had like 20. Like, obviously, fighting games is a little bit easier because they're individuals. It's like
Yes, it is.
the same thing on a small scale. They're also not represented by these companies where they have, these teams where they have, their own schedules to do. Like, you can't bring a COD World League team down because they've got to play in their league.
Yeah.
They're busy like 24 of the 48 or 42 weeks, 52 weeks in the year. So it gets harder that way, but you still need to focus on what you can do locally. It doesn't take much to hire, like, was it like $500? You could hire a hall, right? Like a scout hall or whatever. Get some, like, buy $20 tables from Bunnings. You get a bunch of those. Say you put $1,500 into this. Go start a community Kickstarter fund or whatever. You get some power, you get some tables, you get some people to show up, and it's like $10 at the door. Everyone pays. Like 3 months later, you've paid for it all, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got like a weekly or a fortnightly or something like that. Even though it's like, localized to Melbourne or localized to Sydney, or you just need someone to take charge. And like people used to do that back in the ACL day. People used to like, I forget his name, dude. Was it Roman? Is it Roman? He used to do it for like Halo.
I'm not too sure.
This was like a long time ago.
Yeah, I think you're testing. You're a dinosaur, Steve, man.
But
what's going on?
Like, I know like land costs can be a lot, right? If you go to like a big area, right? I know like MCEC where BAM is $90,000 for the weekend, right? So I know it's not a joke. And I know hiring the CQ in Melbourne that we hired for three nights for Shadaloo Showdown was like $3,000 a night, right? So it's $12,000 right there for like the weekend to run an event. I'm familiar with these things. And that's just for the room. That's not for the AV and not for like people to run it and people to do all the all this stuff. And on top of that, you got to like pay for the internet because they always hit you with the extras. Like I'm not like
Gotta pay for the blinds. The cooling.
Yeah, but it's still possible. You just got to start really small, right, and then build it up. Like no one ever gets to the last step first.
I think a lot of people see like how ESL runs stuff too, like Call of Duty easily, in particular Halo as well.
You can't start at the ESL stage. Like that's not how things work.
Like ESL, for example, have given Call of Duty a great rap. Like in the past, you've had tier 1 production, awesome LAN event. Perfect casters, got the studio experience, and then when that goes, people just turn to ESL. Like I see it like every couple months, like at InManiac, at Vans, at Microsoft. Where's our LAN? Where's our you're ruining the Call of Duty scene, you're ruining the Halo scene because you're not doing that. Like, and even then, like there's logistics behind it. Like ESL report to the global ESL, and it's just not that easy. Like,
I remember Gears of War especially was one of the ones where everyone's like, oh, we just need a LAN. Once we get a LAN, everyone will come. It'll be amazing. We need a prize, but we need a LAN. And then ESL, in conjunction with, what's the name, Coalition, they did a LAN, and the winner would go overseas. So there was an event that was going to be broadcast. I think there was like some travel assistance, I'm not 100% sure. And then it was like the winner gets that all expenses paid trip to wherever it was, Vegas or whatever, I can't even remember. But it was like this big high-scale event, and after all these months of people just like nagging and whinging and whining and begging and pleading, they got one, and 3 teams showed up. 15 people.
Yeah.
15 people showed up, man. There were more people in the production room than there were players at that event, and that's just weak, man. Like, people are so much talk, man. No one wants to put their own money on the line. They want someone else, like you mentioned, Steve. Someone else has to do it because nobody wants to be that person. Nobody wants to be that guy.
It'll come down to some of like the older guys that'll do it, because a lot of the younger guys, they might not know where to start, or they don't have the funds, right? Like as a younger guy, footing the bill for $1,000 for like a hall or something like that, or putting up the capital to like get this local scene kickstarted, it's daunting, right? You've got to work a long time at like a casual rate, or you've got uni going on and whatnot. Whereas the older guys, they have a full-time job, earn a little bit more, maybe have a little bit more money to throw around, and can invest in that passion. But yeah, I feel like the community needs to come together and do something. And if they don't do it, because there's literally, you can't be like, Activision's not doing it for me. Like Capcom never did shit for the FGC, right? Capcom only started the Pro Tour after it became super lucrative for like Evo and CEO and all that, right? After they saw the money, they did something.
I think like I'm gonna go on the other side of the coin here, and I'm gonna contest it, because I think Activision definitely have a responsibility here.
Yeah, there is something
to do the direct comparison. Call of Duty, you got 4 dudes opposed to 1 in Street Fighter. You've got an R18, 18 plus over any age. But like regardless, like there's the point of view. Like I think Naked and a lot of the Mindfree guys and the higher end of the Call of Duty community will talk about that. The top end and the influential players really need to make content, and they sort of see it like content being made as sort of a direct path to Activision seeing that's worthy. If we have a popping off streamer, then we'll get the attention that it deserves. Just this stuff like that. It's probably a poor example, but it comes down to Activision. Like whether you guys think it or not, like the Call of Duty community has like literally some of the most high profile players. It has one of the richest like community members like active. In terms of like fan base and follow base, like Call of Duty teams, players, orgs, they all get great traction on their stuff. They're all very influential. It's a large scene. It's like the best-selling game. The scene's huge. Like,
I really like what in Maniac said here in the chat. ACL ran lands with 20 plus teams with no dev support, no publisher support, and no more than a couple grand total prize pool. And it could be that community feeling that's what's missing. I remember when. Because I'm not Call of Duty play, kind of go back to Gears here. When we would compete, Matt, we would fly down, would save up our Centrelink money, our part-time job money, and lose it. Right? We didn't go there to make money. We went there for the experience, to meet people, and I think that's just
to play the game. Right?
It's definitely a byproduct of esports as a global being like a phenomenon that's growing at exponential rates, where these massive productions and massive companies get involved. And it's obviously a byproduct of that kind of stuff can't coexist. And it's not that it can't, but it's just that people don't have the time to right now. And I'm sure like I've seen like Vans and Maniac or whoever posting on Twitter, would you guys like to see ACL come back? That more of that community ran vibe. And I'm sure as much as I'd love to, like I doubt these guys have time. Right now they've got like what? Counter-Strike, Overwatch,
IM coming up, right?
They got like literally everything going on. So it's like,
I'm sure that's all hands on deck.
Yeah, we can't just look to these guys to be our saviors every single time. It needs to be more. If you want to see a community-ran event, go to your community and try to run it, right? Like, it's such a predicament. It's such a predicament.
Yeah. And to further it, it's like it's also like a bit of a byproduct to entitlement. It's like we had the ACL and then we had the ESL, and it's like, why would we ever go back to like a bring my own setup event when I can just wait for ESL to do something? Like it's definitely there. But like the thing is, I want to comment on the Call of Duty community while we're talking about it. Is Cybergamer ran like a 4-season CGPL circuit last year for Call of Duty. I don't know if they're doing it this year. I remember they canned it, or the idea of canning it was there because the Call of Duty community just treated it like a joke. Like none of the top teams played. They were, they just saw it as like Cybergamer. Who cares? But it's like that's an event. It's LAN exposure. It's fun. Like you get to go to an event with the boys, win a little bit of prize money, do your part for the organization. Like keep the local scene alive, because that's what's bringing the new talent in. Like just because it's not ESL doesn't mean you need to shit on it. Just because it's not MLG doesn't mean you need to shit on it. So it's Call of Duty right now. I've
seen a lot of cases of that as well, right? Like, sorry to throw this into like CS domain, because that's pretty much where I'm at. But like you have like the once in a blue moon ESL event, right? Like when they first came in with like Crown, right? And then like another LAN like maybe 3 or 4 months later, and then you have companies like CG or those sort of guys where they're just running consistent leagues, and it's like, oh, you guys are suck, man. Like I'll just go to ESL when it comes around, like
you've seen how some of like actually a lot of the teams, the tier 1 Counter-Strike teams, have treated AEM, right? So that became like a
Yeah.
pro-am kind of tournament just because the other guys were just like, I don't want to play, or I'm too good for this, or like, and even when you try to sell, like when we had our previous CS team, you try to sell it to, they're like, oh, we don't have enough time to practice. We can't play this league as well. I'm like, well, why don't you just run your practice strats in the league and see what happens? If you lose, I guess you didn't really care anyway.
I guess I agree and disagree.
And they still wouldn't budge on it. It's like, I know like you can get much more like concentrated practice out of like, you know, having your own control or being able to end a series early and restart, or I don't really know how they practice in depth, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You still have to treat it with competitive integrity, but yeah.
Well, it's been an interesting night. A lot of insight from our ends. Great to have a Maniac giving us that ESL insight in the chat. It's always good to have someone who's in the know, because, you know, we're just very much opinion based because we don't know nothing. We're all holler esports boys, just trying to get by in this world. So it's been really insightful in that regard. I want to thank you guys all for coming on once again, and everyone for tuning in. It's been a blast. Let us know if you like this little more kind of esports as a scene focused podcast, because we want to do a little bit more of these later on down the track. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you to my wonderful guests for coming on today. We'll see you guys next week.
Next week.
See ya.
Yep.